of the master. We'll go ahead and look at the words of the master. We're looking at kind of a compilation of the things, the times that Messiah spoke, all of the occurrences in the New Testament when he spoke, and we're putting the accounts, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, together, looking at the differences, the variations between the accounts, and thinking about the situations that occurred to cause Messiah to speak, and looking at the words that he's actually saying. So this week, dealing with Matthew, the tax collector. I think we're going to read Luke 5:27 through 32. The other accounts that, in this case, the variations are very minor. So I think, well, you know what? We always do this. Let's just read all three. Let's read all three. We always do this. Let's read all three of the things. We'll go through them, and then we'll talk about them all. So let's first look at Matthew 9 through 13.
And as Yeshua passed on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax office, and he said to him, "Follow me." And he rose and followed him. And it came to be, as Yeshua sat at the table in the house, that see, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat down with him, and his taught ones. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to his taught ones, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" And Yeshua, hearing this, said to them, "Those who are strong have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire compassion and not offering, for I did not come to call the righteous to repentance, but sinners."
Okay, very good. Okay, very good. Okay, think about this that we've read here. I don't know if you have your pens and papers, and compare that to what we see over in Mark chapter 2, 13 through 17. Mark 2, starting with the 13th verse, read down through verse 17.
And he went out again by the sea, and all the crowd was coming to him, and he taught them. And passing by, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax office, and said to him, "Follow me." And having risen, he followed him. And it came to be, as he sat at the table at his house, that many tax collectors and sinners also sat with Yeshua and his taught ones. And there were many, and they followed him. And when the scribes and Pharisees saw him eating with the tax collectors and sinners, they said to his taught ones, "Why does he eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners?" And hearing this, Yeshua said to them, "Those who are strong have no need for a physician, but those who are sick. I do not come to call the righteous to repentance, but sinners."
Okay, very good. So we look at this compared to what we see in Matthew. It's very similar. It's very similar. If there's any slight variations, make notes. We'll come back and look at kind of verse by verse after we read Luke. We go over to Luke. Luke chapter 5. Luke chapter 5, verse 27 down through 32. Go ahead, read that.
And after this, he went out and saw a tax collector named Levi sitting at the tax office, and said to him, "Follow me." And he, having left all, rose up and followed him. And Levi made a great feast for him in his house, and there was a great number of tax collectors and others who sat down with him. And the Pharisees and their scribes grumbled against his taught ones, saying, why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners? And Yeshua answering said to them, those who are well do not need a physician, but those who are sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance.
Okay, very good. So, it's interesting. It's interesting when we look at Matthew and Mark's version. Matthew, actually, the book of Matthew, right? The book of Matthew, he gets to the part where he gets to talk about his own self, right? He gets to the part of the gospel of, according to Matthew, that he's able to speak about his own self. And so, interestingly enough, when we read Matthew's version, you don't know that Matthew's a tax collector. He hang out with tax collectors, but he don't say he's a tax collector. He might be with those guys, but he don't call himself that. That's interesting. I thought that was interesting. For whatever reason, I don't know if he's trying to make himself look away or what. I don't know what that is, right? He might be bad because of the company that he keeps, but he not one of them from his own account. He don't say it right there. Right? He went out, there was a crowd, he passed by, he saw Levi, he was sitting, actually, it don't even say that he was with the tax collectors necessarily, he was at the tax office. So he was at the place where you pay the taxes at. He was over at the, what's the, one of them little tax places, the little
H&R Block.
He was at the H&R Block office. But he wasn't behind the counter. According to his thing. He ain't putting himself all the way there. Yeah. And so again, we look at Matthew's version, it don't say it. It don't mention that. And the same thing is true in Mark's version. Mark was a disciple of the disciples. Okay, Mark's version don't have it either. But Luke's version, Luke the physician, he's the physician. He always has all of these extra, this extra information. He's a doctor. He's kind of detail oriented, right? And so he goes ahead and puts in the fact that Matthew himself was in fact a tax collector. And so when we think about these, it's interesting, the times. It's interesting when we look at these scriptures to try to understand what's going on. When I think about tax collectors today, it's just, it's just a job that you have. It's not like, it don't define you. Like, I'm an electrician. Like, it don't really define who I am. It's just a job that I have. But this job that these people had, according to the people at the time, these were counted among the worst types of people, tax collectors. They was evil. They was wicked. Right? They was numbered with the Romans. Israel at the time, they was able to be autonomous. I keep forgetting to look at this word, where you have a government that's over you that allows you to govern yourselves inside of their government. So they had kind of a situation, Israel did, but really they was ruled by the Romans, right? The Romans gave them ability to have rulers and all of this, but in all actuality, they actually ruled over them. And so, but these tax collectors, they really worked for the Romans. And so, in the eyes of Israel, then now you're worse than the Romans because you're doing these things to your own people. I mean, you expect what you would expect for some foreigners that are ruling over you to deal with you in a particular way. But you won't expect for your own people to deal with you in that same way, which they in fact did. And so these tax collectors again were from a perspective of the people, these people were in fact wicked, evil. It's interesting when you look at, again, we see in scriptures many places where it talks about the tax collectors in this way. And for me, it's hard for me to get it. Like, I don't understand, like, how could they be that bad? And so it's interesting when we look at works of, say, people like Philo, who was a historian of the time, contemporary with Messiah, right? And he has, he's very philosophical, Philo is, but he also gives you facts about things that have gone on in that time. And so when you look at some of his writings, he begins this particular section speaking about people and the way that they act with one another, and he kind of quotes Deuteronomy 24:16. Pull up Deuteronomy 24:16. He's dealing with the way that people are dealing with one another. He brings up this verse, and then he's going to get ready to talk to you and give you an example of people who kind of are breaking this command over here. And so the thing that makes it relevant is that why we're thinking about why is it that the people looked at tax collectors in such a way when they just had a bad job. But when we think about the worldview that Israel has in terms of walking in Torah, like, what is it that they're doing that's so bad? So let's look at read Deuteronomy 24:16.
Fathers are not put to death for their children, and children are not put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sin.
Okay, very good. So we see over here this idea in Torah where if you do something, you deal with the consequences of that thing that you've done yourself. Right? Hiskey don't gotta deal with my issue, right? I gotta deal with my own. He got to deal with his own. So that in the backdrop, I want to kind of read here this little bit of thing that Philo goes into in terms of this particular tax collector. So it says over here, not long ago, a certain man had been appointed a collector of taxes in our country. When some of those who appeared to owe such tribute fled out of poverty from the fear of intolerable punishment if they remained without paying, carried off their wives and their children and their parents and their whole family by force, beating and insulting them and heaping every kind of contumely and ill treatment upon them to make them either give information as to where the fugitives had concealed themselves or pay the money instead of them, though they could not do either one. They could not do either one thing or the other in the first place because they did not know where they were, and secondly, because they were still in greater poverty than the people that fled. So you got these people who are being punished, who they themselves are being punished for these people that left. They don't know where they're at. If they wanted to, they couldn't pay their taxes, but the tax collectors are dealing with these people and putting their punishment on the people, these other people, tax collectors. But this tax collector did not let them go till he had tortured their bodies with racks and wheels, so as to kill them with newly invented kinds of death, fastening a basket full of sand on their necks with cords, and suspending it there as a very heavy weight, and then placing them in the open air in the middle of the marketplace, that some of them being tortured and being overwhelmed by all these afflictions at once, the wind and the sun, and the mockery of the passers-by, and the shame, and the heavy burden attached to them, might faint miserably, and that the rest, being spectators, might be grieved and take warning to these, putting these people on a display, and they didn't even do anything. They just was the neighbors of the person who owed. Some of whom, having a more acute sense of such miseries in their minds than that which they could receive through their eyes, since they sympathize with these unfortunates as if they were themselves suffering in the persons of others, put an end to their own lives by swords and poisons and halters, thinking of a great piece of good luck for persons liable for such miseries to be able to meet with death without torture. These people were killing themselves because they were scared of what the tax collectors would do to them. They thought it would be better for them just to kill themselves instead of being tortured by the tax collectors.
Were those the neighbors or were those the relatives?
They were the neighbors, the relatives left with the people. They was just the neighbors of the people. And so we're not even talking about the relatives. All the relatives came together and left. They couldn't pay, they left. And so, but the neighbors of the people, somebody who might maybe potentially know where they went, they was treated as if they was the people. Go ahead. Yeah, and so when we think about now the tax collector, right? These are tax collectors. This is the things that they did, right? This is their kind of MO. Like, these are the things that they do. These are the types of things that they get into in terms of getting that money. And so now when we think about, going back to the Gospels now, when we think about people's thoughts about tax collectors, now it's kind of putting in some color into the lines over here. When we think about the fact that these people was crazy. These people was crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had now, along with what they was actually doing, you had like inside of the kind of the rabbinic writings, things that was said that you could apply to a tax collector. Right? And so when you think about, according to the rabbinic writings, there were 6 things that would disgrace the student of scholars, right? And this is just from rabbinic writings. There's 6 things that would disgrace the student of scholars. He should not go out into the street perfumed. Just one thing. He should not go out alone at night. He should not go out with mended shoes. He should not talk to a woman in the street. He should not lie at table with people ignorant of the law. And when they say lie, just recline. They kind of reclined at table, right? So you wasn't to lie, recline at a table with people who are ignorant to the law. And so when you think about a tax collector, if he's able to do all of these things to his people, I think it's safe to say that he's ignorant to the law. Right? And so this is what we're looking at when we think about these tax collectors. And Matthew, who himself is a tax collector. And so it's interesting when you think about these people. And was it just a stereotype? Was it just a stereotype? I think that if you're doing that job, like there's no way to kind of be like, you know, how we talk about police, you know, well, he's a good one.
Yeah.
Like the police, you know, they're always like whatever. We look at them and they're, you know, they're like the enemy. But this one, you know, he's a good one.
He's cool. He's cool.
But when you're part of a particular system, in this case, this idea of tax collectors, it's inherently against the people.
Yep.
And so there's no way to to say, well, you know, all tax collectors are bad, but he's a good one though. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting when we think about all of this now and looking at, you know, what we see over here with Yeshua. He comes back, he's back in his home base town again, and he just walks past and sees, oh, look at these people over here in this tax booth. He looks over and sees Matthew over here, and he says, coming, like, what is it about him sitting in his tax booth, you know, cause Messiah to look over and just say, hey, you look like you'll fit right in with us. Come and follow me. And then he's like, okay, and drops everything and follows him.
Because you can tell when a person has a good spirit.
Well, Messiah could tell.
Well,
Definitely could tell.
yeah, he could tell, but you know, the general world, you can gravitate to people. You're like, oh, this person has an inviting or whatever. Like, yeah, he can just look at him and see probably the mannerisms. Like, yeah, because he said, all right, I'm coming.
Yeah. And I feel like when we look at that part of it, I feel like, because we already have seen instances where Yeshua is dealing with people based on what's going on the inside of that person.
Right.
Maybe Yeshua was sort of, he was misunderstood because his people in his town, he was trying to do a job. Like you said, they couldn't separate
Yeah.
the job. He was, you know, but he was doing something that they didn't agree with.
Yeah.
But they would have killed him. So it's me and you.
I think, yes, I agree. I think at the end of the day, it's Yeshua seeing what's inside of him. Because I'm saying this is one of those things with the tax collector. You can't you can't be a good tax collector because your job is inherently wrong. Right? If you was like a people,
Hold on, so everybody working at the IRS today is wrong?
I'm saying what in this system. This system right here, the IRS is that's another.
I'm saying they wrong.
But I mean, they very well could be. But I'm saying in this particular system, it's almost like saying, well, I have the job of a people filleter, but he's a good people filleter. Like the thing that you're doing, there's no right way to do it. But what I'm saying is that Yeshua now is able to see inside of that man and call him from the life that he's living and say, follow me. And he says, okay, what was you going to say?
Throughout scripture, you see a lot of times where Yeshua does a lot of things provocatively to kind of challenge the teachings of the Jews at that time, like when he healed on the Shabbat, to provoke that argument, can you do good on the Shabbat, can you heal on the Shabbat? And it was almost like he did this intentionally as well because of what you shared as far as how they saw tax collectors. Well, exactly what I want to go ahead and take. I'm going to take a tax collector, I'm going to unlearn, I'm going to take the fishermen and just use these people to shame what you're doing because of your practices and customs and so forth.
Yeah. When you look at Messiah and the way that he did things, everything that he did was kind of so like multifaceted. Like he's doing multiple things at one time. And so, yes, he's looking at this person. He's seeing his heart. He's saying, this guy is secretly following me in his heart anyway. I'm just gonna put him on blast and say, come follow me and see if his heart is telling the truth. And it was. But yes, also, when you look at his lineup, the roster of the 12 disciples, we don't know as much about all of them, but the ones that we do know are just regular guys. None of them he didn't pull out of the synagogues. None of them wasn't, he didn't pull out. The only one that has a name of renown that we know of as an apostle is Paul. The rest were just regular guys that was very rough around the edges. And so when we think about Matthew over here, this tax collector, again, we see Messiah looking to Matthew, looking at his heart, because I guess you could say that maybe, because when we look at the account, we don't see the backstory necessarily. We see Yeshua walking by, he sees a guy, say, "Come on," and he said, "Okay, I'm with it." But we have to think about the fact that where they are, they're in this place that's in Capernaum, where Messiah did a great majority of his miracles. So Matthew's already familiar with Messiah. He's seen him already. And even if they wasn't there, we at this point in the progression of things, there's a buzz going around the whole country about Messiah and the things that he's doing. But specifically, Matthew here operating kind of in where the home base of Messiah is. He knows who Messiah is. He's seen him doing the things. This is basically just his opportunity to allow for the thing that's obviously going on inside of him to be manifest. The scripture don't tell us this, but it's, you had to think about, it's not, there's miraculous things going on, but every single, thing is not written there for us. So when we think about things just in real life, how is it that this man is just walking by? Oh yeah, I'll just drop everything. The guys and the fishermen, they kind of needed that whole boat thing with the fish thing to happen for them to just leave. They knew after all of that happened that, yeah, there's something special about this guy. He didn't just walk past or see guys on a boat and say, "Come on and let's go." There was a thing that happened. In fact, when you look at Messiah, the thing that kind of facilitates all of these things is his healing ministry. People are seeing all of the miraculous things that he's doing and connecting him with the Most High whenever he's doing these miraculous things and saying, well, this is that guy that's raising people from the dead, that's making blind people see, that's making lame people walk, that's making dumb people talk. Whatever it is that he's doing, I need to be part of that. And so Matthew's no different from that, even though we don't have all of that given to us here in the story. And so again, we think about these tax collectors again, they I almost say they got a bad rap, but they actually deserve the bad rap. And so Yeshua calls out to Matthew and says to him, "Follow me." And so go over to pull up Luke, their chapter 5, verse 27. Pull that up there. And look at the word follow. Put that up there, that word follow. Follow. Yeah, what's that word there? Follow. That Greek word there. It says properly to be in the same way with. That is to accompany, specifically as a disciple, follow, reach. So when he's saying follow me, it's more than just here, walk the same way that I'm walking. But it kind of means walk the same way that I'm walking. Like from a Hebraic sense. Because you're dealing with these people who, they have this culture of, teachers and disciples. Right? So he's saying follow me, but basically what he's saying is be my disciple. Do everything that I tell you to do for a specific time, and I'll teach you all the secrets, and then you could do the same things that I'm doing. All that is encapsulated in follow me. And so when we think about, what's going on over here, Yeshua's inviting Matthew to this intimate fellowship and relationship with him, in which he's able to learn from and be led by him. Let's look at Ephesians 5, 1 and 2. Ephesians 5, read for us Ephesians 5, verse 1 and 2.
Okay. I can get it. Okay. Become then imitators of Elohim as beloved children, and walk in love as Messiah also has loved us, and gave himself for us, a gift and an offering to Elohim for a sweet smelling fragrance.
Okay, very good. So when we think about the idea of being a follower, this here is a different word, but it gives you the same kind of idea of what it is to be a follower, right? This word here means a mimicker. As dear children, it gives you this word, and then it's giving you this as dear children, because that's what children are. We as human beings are social beings. Mm-hmm. You do the things that you look at and see every day, and you emulate those things. As a human being, that's what you do. You're the way you are because of the experiences that you have experienced in your life and saw with your eyes. You learned from watching, right? So in this situation, we're talking about watching Messiah. We're talking about watching Elohim. We're talking about doing the things that Messiah does, walking in the character of the Most High by the power of the Ruach HaKodesh. So when we think about all that, think about the place that this man, Matthew, was at and the pressure. We get these, because the tax collector is wicked and evil as he is. He's doing all the things because of the pressure of his boss, the Roman government. They got so much pressure on these people that cause them to do all these things against their own people. But it's all because of the power and influence they have over them. And then here comes this guy, Yeshua, who does these things, who's doing these things and exemplifying the Most High on earth to these people, and Matthew being able to recognize this, Yeshua being able to recognize that Matthew recognizes, and calling him, and Matthew basically shunning who he is as a person, a tax collector, and following after us. And so when we look and see that Matthew just drops everything that he knows and goes after Messiah, you're able to see that it don't say all of this, but we're able to see that he obviously inside of himself became resolute with the fact that there's nothing that these people who used to have a grip and hold on me can do to me if I go ahead and follow this guy. This is the same Messiah we follow even right now. Okay, so let's keep on going. Let's keep on looking at this because something interesting happens when we go back. Go back to Luke. Go back to Luke. And so when we look at back in Luke chapter 5, now verse 29. Read verse 29 again for us. Luke 5:29.
And Levi made a great feast for him in his house, and there were a great number of tax collectors and others who sat down with him.
Okay, now this is interesting because now this is turning into like a thing over here. Because we see that Messiah, okay, saw Matthew over here, the tax collector. You know, there's one tax collector, you know, but, you know, you come on, you stop doing that, come with me. You know, your life, you change your life over here, and we'll be doing this over here. But, so Matthew now, he says, we're going to celebrate. We're going to have a party at my house. You know, the tax collectors, they had money. They were, you know, they did. So they would take the taxes, but, you know, they would take a little for